What if I told you that one baseball team is spending so much money right now that their luxury tax penalty alone, just the penalty, not even the actual payroll, is bigger than the entire roster cost of 12 Major League Baseball franchises? What if I told you that the same team has just signed its 7th 9-figure contract, locked up the game's most electrifying player on the biggest contract in sports history, and is now bringing in a 4-time All-Star who had absolutely no reason to leave his previous team, other than the fact that this Los Angeles machine simply waved a check in his face that nobody else in baseball could even dream of writing? And what if I told you that fans across this country, not just fans of rival teams, but lifelong baseball lovers, are genuinely asking out loud whether this is the end of fair competition as we know it? Stay right here. Because what the Los Angeles Dodgers are doing with Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, and now their latest additions is either the greatest dynasty-building operation in sports history, or it is the slow, calculated destruction of everything that makes baseball worth watching. And by the end of this video, you are going to have a very strong opinion about which one it is. Let us start at the very beginning of this madness, because if you want to understand just how wild the Dodgers situation has become, you have to understand the sequence of events that got us here. It did not happen overnight. This was a cold, calculated, methodical takeover. It started back after the 2023 season when the Dodgers sat down with Shohei Ohtani, the most extraordinary baseball player the sport has ever seen, a man who pitches like an ace, hits like a cleanup slugger, and somehow makes all of it look effortless, and they handed him a 10-year, $700 million contract. $700 million. For context, that is more money than several small market teams have spent on players in their entire franchise histories combined. And the Dodgers were not even close to done. Within the same offseason, they signed Yoshinobu Yamamoto, a generational pitching talent from Japan, to a 12-year, $325 million deal. They acquired Tyler Glasnow and handed him a $136.5 million contract. All of this while already having Mookie Betts, one of the most complete players in the sport, locked into his own massive 9-figure deal. And Freddie Freeman, who had already delivered one of the most legendary World Series performances in memory, was already on another enormous contract as well. At this point, you might be thinking, okay, they spent big, but surely they were done. Surely there was a ceiling. There was not. After winning the 2024 World Series with the highest payroll in all of baseball, the Dodgers turned right back around. They signed Blake Snell to a 5-year, $182 million contract. Then, as if to answer every single critic and every single fan who dared to say enough, they signed Kyle Tucker, a 4-time All-Star outfielder who had been one of the best players on a Houston Astros team that was genuinely competing for championships on its own, to a 4-year, $240 million deal. And then they went out and won the 2025 World Series again. Back to back. With again the highest payroll in baseball. By a distance that is almost incomprehensible. Let us talk real numbers, because this is where the conversation stops being theoretical and starts being genuinely jaw-dropping. The Dodgers' competitive balance tax payroll for 2025 was $417,341,608. Their luxury tax penalty was a record $169,375,768. Add those together, and you get $586,717,376. That is what this team cost Major League Baseball in terms of official financial accounting for one single season. The Mets had the second highest payroll in the sport, and they were still $93 million behind the Dodgers. $93 million. That is not a gap. That is a canyon. That is a financial moat that most franchises could not even cross with a full offseason of spending. And here is the stat that has been setting social media on fire and sending fans to their keyboards in absolute rage. The Dodgers' luxury tax penalty alone, again, just the penalty, was larger than the competitive balance tax payrolls of 12 MLB teams. 12 teams? The Milwaukee Brewers, who were so underpaid relative to their competition that they became a punchline, actually had a payroll smaller than just the fine the Dodgers paid for overspending. Think about that for a second. The punishment for being too rich is a bill bigger than what 12 entire teams spent on all of their players. And the Dodgers paid it, smiled, and went on to raise another championship banner. So what does this actually mean for the sport? Is this just jealousy from fans of smaller market teams, or is there something genuinely broken here? Let us play both sides of this debate because both sides have real points. The people who are furious, and there are a lot of them, argue that this is fundamentally unfair. They will tell you that Ohtani alone, just his contract on the books, represents more value than most teams can afford to add in a single offseason. They will tell you that having 7 active 9-figure contracts on one roster is not competition, it is a simulation of competition. On social media, people are already comparing the Dodgers to the 2016 Golden State Warriors when Kevin Durant decided to join a team that had just gone 73-9, essentially making the outcome of the championship a formality. Fans are calling the players who signed their ring chasers, calling their decisions spineless, saying it is no longer about the love of the game. And sports radio voices from coast to coast, including personalities like Chris Russo, are saying publicly that while the Dodgers are not technically doing anything wrong, the rules themselves are a joke. On the other side of the argument, and this is important because the numbers actually support it more than you might expect, the Dodgers are not an unstoppable machine in the way people are imagining. In 2025, they had the 5th most regular season wins in all of baseball. 5th. The frugal, budget-conscious Milwaukee Brewers actually finished ahead of them in wins. The postseason in baseball is notoriously unpredictable, a beautiful chaos of short series and single eliminations where a hot pitcher or a clutch hit can derail even the most loaded roster. In the 2025 World Series, the Toronto Blue Jays took the Dodgers to Game 7. A ball wedged in the outfield padding in Game 6 could have been the difference. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa taking a bigger lead at third in Game 7 could have changed everything. The Dodgers are dominant, but they are not unbeatable, and that distinction matters. But here is the thing that their defenders cannot escape. Even if you believe the postseason randomness argument, even if you acknowledge that smaller market teams can still occasionally compete, there is a deeper structural problem that the Dodgers' spending is accelerating. They are forcing every other serious contender to spend more aggressively just to stay in the conversation. They are eliminating the margin for error that well-run, thoughtful franchises used to be able to operate within. And for the bottom half of the league, the teams already struggling with attendance, revenue, and local deals that do not come close to the Dodgers' cable television goldmine, they are not just making it harder to compete. They are making it feel pointless to try. This is the heart of what makes this controversy so explosive. Major League Baseball does not have a salary cap. It has a luxury tax system with 4 thresholds that serve more as a suggestion than a hard limit for a team like the Dodgers, who have the financial infrastructure to absorb those penalties while simultaneously spending more than any team in history. The collective bargaining agreement between the league and the players' union is set to expire after the 2026 season, and the signs are already pointing toward a brutal, potentially season-disrupting labor war. Owners who have been pushing for a real salary cap for years now have the most powerful argument they have ever had: a back-to-back champion who spent nearly $600 million in one season. The Players' Union, which has resisted a hard cap for decades because it would limit earning potential, is going to face enormous pressure from public opinion that has been inflamed by exactly these moments. And somewhere in the middle of all of this, the game itself hangs in the balance. Here is what nobody wants to say out loud, but everyone is thinking. The Dodgers are the villain of this story not because they cheated, not because they broke any rule, but because they exposed how hollow the pretense of competitive balance in baseball actually is. They showed that if you have enough money, enough deferred salary creativity, and enough willingness to absorb tax penalties that would bankrupt most organizations, you can essentially purchase your way to the top of the sport.